when we last left off, we reviewed Maggie, to be quite frank, feeling sorry for herself. And we ended the video with Maggie crying over all of the comments and compliments she got after this whole kerfluffle. I despise people being super nice to women on the internet. It annoys me. Not because I don't like people being nice to women. I like being nice to women. I love it. I'm not even kidding. I'm not joking. I do love being nice to women. But the internet, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, that's his loss, sister. Oh, he missed out. And I'm just like, no, he didn't. He, like, what are you talking about? No, he didn't. He didn't miss out on anything. If anything, I kept seeing this. Oh, well, he doesn't know, and they tell Maggie, they say, Maggie, you dodged the bullet. I say, Maggie didn't dodge no damn bullet. That nigga missed. I find it interesting he missed the target so big. Okay, fine. That's enough. No more. Fat jokes at Maggie's expense. It might be true, her gravitational pull just brings it out of me. Okay, that's enough. I'm sorry. That one was corny, to be fair. You know, corny like one of the sides on her main dish. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Sorry. Listen, I saw this one video Maggie did, and it really kind of puts everything in the frame and focus for me. So, we're going to go over what happened when Maggie was on the opposite side of what happened to her. Because that ultimately is going to so shut the entire point that I'm making about this stupid dumbass dating game that we've created. With all these stupid dumbass rules and hypocritical players and all these different people nipping at each other. Because when Maggie was in the same position, we're going to analyze what she did and how she handles rejecting somebody. So Maggie is going to finally take us away.
For those who don't believe me about nice guys, here's a nice guy right here. His name's Jim. He's 39.
So Maggie opens the door. She hits the ground running, being mad at nice guys. Like they did anything wrong to her, but try to love her or some shit like that.
I said, for what it's worth, it's depressing all around for everyone, I think, talking about dating apps. I agree, it's bad all around dating in 2024, but I guarantee it's far worse for average men.
Now, Maggie has been presented with an opposite opinion. Maggie must now face an opinion that is not her own. Maggie must now contend with someone else's perspective. How is Maggie going to handle hearing an opinion that is not her own? Will Maggie listen respectfully? Will Maggie offer empathy, grace, kindness, and compassion to the pain that this man and many other men have experienced? Will Maggie take a moment to remember that males are the other half of her species, and that perhaps they too have struggles and woes? And while Maggie may not agree that it's worse for average men, will Maggie take a moment to listen, empathize, and understand with what her potential dating partner that she picked has to say? Let's find out.
Far worse is so hard to be man. Far worse is so hard to be man. I politely disagree. Average men aren't getting sexually harassed on the daily, unsolicited pictures and disgusting descriptive comments.
Now, this encapsulates one of the biggest problems with men and women, and that is how little, I'll be honest with you, more often than not, women choose to understand men. A lot of women, not all of them of course, but as we just saw with Maggie, would prefer to play tit for tat than to build a bridge, than to offer up understanding, than from her own perspective try to fully grasp why this man feels the way he feels. To Maggie, we go into the oppression Olympics. Or we go into, well, my woes are harder than yours. But what Maggie doesn't understand is that this is an extreme offered to an individual with a deficit. In other words, it's like threatening a parched person with too much water. It's like threatening an individual that's been starving with a 60-ounce steak. I don't even know if a motherfucker can even have a 60-ounce steak. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know if that's possible. It's like threatening them with too much food. They're not going to be able to grasp the issue of overindulgence when they have nothing. And a lot of ladies, while I actually do empathize with them, I do. I grant and I grasp that everything that Maggie said is definitely annoying and awful to deal with. Well, the problem with the sexual harassment thing is there's a little too much wiggle room for the definition of it all. But, you know what? Let me just fully grant it for the sake of conversation, right? The issue is that if you're bringing this against an individual that is so alone that they've never been touched by someone their entire lives, the magnitude of the issue is never going to come across correctly. So while it might be true that being sexually assaulted is terrible, absolutely, the issue is that you can't use it as a point to shut down any conversation or a point to derive empathy or even make a point against a male that's never been touched, or a male that hasn't been touched in 5 years, or a male that hasn't been touched in 10 years. It's just not going to come across. It's just going to get lost in translation. While there's a conversation here to be had that too much attention is a bad thing, and some women can and do feel threatened by males sometimes, for better or for worse, for reasonable reason or unreasonable reason, that is an issue they have, to an individual that begs and wishes to get something, this does not come across as the bad thing. It doesn't come across at the least worse than having nothing. Having too much attention sounds a lot better than having no attention at all in the minds of very many lonely people. Now, we're going to continue, but it is very important to set the groundwork for my thesis here before we continue in the video.
I understand that you get unwanted attention, but it's better to be sexually harassed than having no attention at all, let alone a match or reply.
Yeah, that brother's starving.
Thank you for at least hearing me out. Give your attention to the right men. They are out there. Ask me how I know.
That is very, very desperate. And look, to be fair, if I was a woman, I would make that nigga yield to my will if I knew he had such weakness. But the modern woman, for some odd reason, doesn't really seem to take advantage of that unless they want to get, like, money or something. Like, the modern woman never sees a desperate man and is ever like, you know what? I'm going to cut you some slack. I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to love you and hug you and treat you well and show you all the good, finer things in life. I'm going to be your manic pixie dream girl. You ever notice that? You ever notice how the modern woman's never like, I'm just going to be your manic pixie dream girl for maybe 2 or 3 months and then just go away. Maybe help reinvigorate you and give you some hope and show you there's a better tomorrow. You ever notice how these motherfuckers never do that?
Thank you for at least hearing me out. Give your attention to the right men. They are out there. Ask me how I know. Bro. You just showed so many red flags. You just told me that it's better to be sexually harassed or even assaulted than to receive no attention at all.
No, Maggie. That's not fair, Maggie. He didn't say, and sexually assaulted. You sprinkled that in there. That was not his point. His point of being sexually harassed is better than getting zero attention. Because the nature of sexual harassment is getting attention sexually that you don't want. And that's really the long and short of that. Like, if you're a woman and you are being sexually harassed, while it may be coming from a source you don't like and or respect, it is confirmation or at least validation that someone finds you attractive and you do have options to pursue, even if you simply just wanted to have sex. Now, of course, lots of women love to pretend that they don't like to get the long, deep strokes, but we're not here to talk about that today now, are we? No, what we're going to talk about today is I will grant Maggie's full argument and full point that being sexually harassed sucks. I'm not going to play this game of and sexually assaulted because that's not what the young man, or old man, the nigga's 39, said. So I'm not even going to contend with that. It's not fair for Maggie to try to put that in there to make him look worse. It's not fair at all, and I'm not going to play her game. So anyhow, the greater point that I think is being made here is that getting an abundance of attention is better than no attention. And it's always kind of better to have too much than it is to have none at all. Not even too little, just like none at all. Because too much means you have options and you can choose what you engage with and what you don't. Sexual harassment, unfortunately, is way too broad. You remember that one video from many years ago of a woman walking through New York and being sexually and being catcalled and sexually harassed? And it was it was just niggas saying hello.
How you doing today? Wow. That's not good.
Wow.
What's up, beautiful? Have a good day. Hey, what's up, girl? How you doing? Somebody's acknowledging you for being beautiful. She said thank you.
Oh, bless you. Hey, baby.
Hey, beautiful. How are you this morning?
Have a nice evening.
Nice. Damn.
God bless. Sexy American Eagle.
Now, of course, I will grant that some of the guys did follow her, and some of the guys were very persistent. I say very persistent, but, I think very persistent, I guess, is just hovering around after she's not engaging. Like, that's fairly being too persistent. Even if you're not actually doing anything egregious or physical, come on, you gotta accept. If she's not engaging, it's over, right? You know what I'm saying? That's fair. And I think it's fair for women to even be bothered or annoyed by that, right? Like if you tell someone no, and then they keep trying, and you're like, no, and they keep trying, and then they say no, and they keep, I get that. Like I'm not against women for being annoyed by that. The problem that I have is not having any understanding of the other half of your fucking species. At a certain point, if I can understand that being annoyed and sexually harassed is bad, why can't you guys understand that literally never being touched, cared for, or loved is extremely painful?
Than to receive no attention at all when women are begging for no attention at all instead of that.
Yes, Maggie, your cup runneth over. Your large gargantuan size is quite evidence of that. Okay, I'm sorry. I promise that I won't make any more fat jokes at Maggie's expense, okay? I promise.
Don't make promises you can't keep, Mr. Parker.
Yeah, but those are the best kind.
Said, I think it's a tad disrespectful to say at least you get attention when it's literally disrespectful attention that I get. I'd rather get no attention at all than be treated like an object.
Now, to be quite honest with you, I don't fully grasp why women believe they're being treated like objects by males who are sexually attracted to them. I think the real men that would treat you like an object are the guys that like have booty calls, the guys that are like only, they only want to Netflix and chill. They don't really talk to you beyond that. Like, if that's what you're referring to, then I guess I could understand you feeling like a living fleshlight because that's how you're being treated. But if the man is trying to engage with you because he finds you sexually attractive from go, he hasn't even started to treat you like an object. That's just how he engaged from the beginning. And again, unfortunately, when it comes to the concept of sexual harassment, it's actually way too loose to really be clear. And I think some things get labeled as sexual harassment only because you don't like the source rather than the actual action itself is wrong. It's a little bit too complex, and that kind of goes beyond this video anyway. Maintaining grace and empathy with Maggie, it's true that disrespectful and nasty attention is certainly something one would wish to avoid. However, disrespectful, nasty attention is still more attention than no one ever talking to you ever. Now, there's also a gigantic implication that's even found in the fact that this interaction is happening, that if you're a young lady and you're being sexually harassed, you're probably also getting positive male attention too. There's no way an ugly woman is getting sexually harassed. Okay? I'm sorry. I do apologize. There's no way an undesirable woman in her only experience with males is being sexually harassed by men she doesn't want. Like, come on. Let's not. And like I said, evidence in the fact that you have a man that you're talking to that's trying to court you. So the implication of even having to deal with, again, too much sexual attention is that you are still found with the sexual attention you do want as well. So it's not actually a dichotomy, but if it were a dichotomy, then your cup running over is probably a lot better than not having any water at all.
I don't give them attention, and it's a narrow-minded view to say things like that to women who are being sexually harassed and assaulted left and right.
Again, Maggie wishes to sprinkle in the sexual assault in order to really dig the knife in deep that this is serious and you should feel bad and how dare you. It's more the implication implied, because again, that argument was not made by the man she's talking to, and I disrespect her for it. I can't stand it when people do that. It's extremely annoying.
I think it's disrespectful to ignore men's problems. What problems, bro?
Perhaps the problem of trying to talk to a woman about how you have problems, and then she asks you, what problems? Maybe that problem, Miss Maggie.
I'm trying to be respectful of your feelings, which I would argue few men are capable of doing. You're not being respectful of my feelings. You're not doing that at all.
Yeah, Maggie, but if I'm to grant that he's not being respectful of your feelings, neither are you. At best, I would argue that these are two people disrespecting each other's feelings. The difference is, he's not the one making the TikTok video, quite literally scoffing at the conversation itself, now is he?
Not at all. You're being just like everyone else, transactionally nice.
That doesn't even make any sense. To even attempt to add this concept to what we bore witness to. The man is just disagreeing with you. He's not being transactionally nice at all. Perhaps he is that type of person, but that remains to be seen based on what you showed us.
Nice doesn't mean kindness.
Now, something that is extremely annoying to me about, what year is it? Current year 2024. Is how so many people want to redefine the concept of nice, as if we all didn't grow up with the word being synonymous with kind or pleasant. Of course, one of the biggest problems that I broke down very many years ago was that there's a huge difference between someone being passive and someone being kind, and how sometimes those two actions are oftentimes viewed in a different light, despite the fact that they'd be the same action in and of itself. For example, an individual who is asked to give, say, a candy bar, can be passive as to not wish to argue with the individual asking for the candy bar and assert themselves, or they could be kind insofar as they really want the individual to taste the candy bar because it tastes delicious and they want to share it. The problem between being passive and being kind in this scenario is you don't know the difference because it's the same literal physical action and you can't know the person's motivation. To truly really understand the difference between an individual that's oftentimes passive versus kind is something you'd have to grasp by spending a good amount of time with them. The biggest issue we have in this conversation here is Maggie is trying to split the difference between nice and kind as if it's even relevant to the conversation we had. But the only reason Maggie needs to do this is because women who created the term nice guy from Go now want to move away from it and really highlight how the nice guy is some nasty, bad nigga who's a wolf in sheep's clothing or some nonsense like that. When in reality, it's just a nigga doing what he was told. Now, that doesn't mean doing what you're told is being done in a righteous manner. If you want to question the motivations of these guys, then by all means, I won't stop you. But one of the biggest problems here is, again, the concept of the nice guy is something that was created by young ladies. So doing this extra work here to try to parse and separate the definition further and even more really is just not addressing the fact that you set up the expectation that men behave this way, and now you're trying to double back and say, no, there's a difference between being nice and being kind. As if, again, all of us grown-ass men and women didn't grow up with the word nice being synonymous with the word kind.
It doesn't mean thinking about other people graciously as humans, because you're not doing that.
Well, Miss Maggie, neither are you. Miss Maggie, neither are you.
I said, I'm not ignoring your problems at all, but I don't think it's worse for men. I think it sucks for everyone, but it's not worse for men. But I can see we will never agree, and that's fine. I just don't think this conversation needs to go any further. I don't think you're actually being respectful of what it is like to be sexually assaulted or viewed as a prop.
So again, Maggie sprinkles in sexual assault when that is not what the man said. It's ironic. She's talking about how he's not being respectful when she's the one putting words in his mouth, but continue, Maggie. Wrap us up, please.
I hope you never truly understand what it's like to be sexually assaulted or raped or receive unwanted attention. And then I blocked it.
So, let me get this one straight. This guy tries to express an emotional vulnerability that he probably did, and many other young males feel. You, Maggie, didn't like that and thought that somehow it made sense for you to combat with a tit for tat on how it's worse to be a female. You grossly overestimated how that point would come across, and when the guy continued his disagreement with you, you decided it was okay to put words in his mouth and argue with something that he didn't say and, let's be real, probably doesn't even believe. And then you block him. Now, let's run this back to back. You did this.
Fireworks is so hard to be man.
And then I blocked him.
And for some ungodly reason, anyone on the internet is supposed to feel bad. I know they do feel bad because obviously you got almost 10 million. Well, you got 10 million views in aggregate on both Twitter and on TikTok combined. Lots of people feel bad for you because this happened.
Dating when you're fat sucks.
So let's just summarize. It's okay for you to put words in the mouth of, disrespect, and scoff at the feelings of a man you don't like because he said an opinion you didn't like. But if a man says that you're too fat to date, then he's a problem. Is that right, Maggie? Dating while being fat sucks. You had a man who was totally fine with you being fat. You then blocked that man because he's a nice guy who will never truly understand the feelings of women or being sexually assaulted. While you then say that you hope he doesn't. I don't know if you're being backhanded, snide, or if you didn't really think critically about what you said, but I digress on that point. I just want to take stock that it's okay for you to do that, but if someone leaves you at a restaurant because you're too fat, that's wrong. I just wanted to make sure I understand. It's okay when you decide you don't want to talk to anyone anymore. Someone else does it to you. Oh, boo-hoo. Dating while being fat sucks. Well, how about dating while having a different opinion than the other person you're talking to sucks? How about that, huh, Maggie?
Just one example of 1,000 of nice guys who just don't get it.
Look at that. He's a nice guy that just doesn't get it. God forbid, Maggie, that you, a woman that he has direct correspondent with, just talks to him like a normal human being. God forbid, Maggie, that you, the grown-ass woman with a functioning cognitive system, just talks to him. God forbid, Maggie, that you just have the argument or the conversation with him. God forbid, Maggie, that you walk him through your perspective and maybe show him why he's wrong. God forbid, Maggie, that you have a different opinion than another human being on earth. God forbid, Maggie. And God also forbid that you lose any flipping weight so you become more sexually attractive to the men you want, huh? Let's also sprinkle that in there too, eh?
They just don't understand what it means to be kind and think of women as human beings rather than a prop or an object to obtain.
Now, this video was rather interesting. If we are to address the conclusion first before we get into the full analysis, or at least the conclusion, it is actually very strange how in the end she projects that this guy is a nice guy who's treating women like an object or a prop or something, which are opinions he might possess but did not even actually express in the actual conversation that she had. It's actually kind of goofy, all things considered, but let's not spend too much time on that. So, Maggie the Fatty Bo-baddie is caught between two extremes. On the one hand, she is undesirable, and being fat sucks. On the other hand, Maggie is too desirable, and being sexually harassed by men she doesn't want sucks. Somehow, the only men Maggie ends up being with are men that want her too much, or men that just don't want her at all. Now, is that probably more accurate to what actually goes on in Maggie's dating life? Probably the flip not. But this is at least the implication that we have between these two different videos here. One, Maggie encounters a nice guy that views women as a prop or a trophy or whatever, even though, again, nothing he said points to that. That's what Maggie says. In the other video that we originally started from in the last video, which, if you didn't watch it, why are you guys here? Go watch that video. Maggie laments the fact that she's overweight and finding men to date is difficult for her because of that reason. Or at the very least, she ends up getting treated poorly because of that reason. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this video, and will be the conclusion and wrap up, is because I wanted to highlight and point out that no matter how Maggie might frame the way she experiences the world, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, one thing that cannot be avoided is the fact that Maggie did the same thing to someone else that happened to her. She decided she did not wish to further engage, but rather than doing it in the polite way that the dude at the restaurant did, Maggie, on the other hand, projects, insults, scoffs, and then blocks the individual because he had a opinion that she didn't like. One of the biggest issues between young men and young women is not only the tit-for-tat nonsense where neither side really wants to stop, and I'll be honest with you, it didn't even seem like the dude she was talking to wouldn't have engaged with her any further. It remains to be seen. Perhaps he's pig-headed, but again, that's just not the conversation we bore witness to. But I've noticed that there's lots of people that don't want to stop and take a moment to really understand and empathize and grasp the greater point to move forward. The truth of the matter is, being sexually harassed does suck. It is garbage, and it is coming from a source that you don't like. I think a lot of men understand that and really don't even need that to be explained to them. However, what a lot of young ladies seem to need to be explained to them is never being touched for years is painful, and it can even destroy your psyche, so much to a point where sometimes you convince yourself that you don't even want it at all. There are times where you can even get to a state where you're finally attractive enough to get physical attention from the opposite sex, but you fried your nervous system and treated yourself like you're a non-option for so long, you don't even believe it, or you don't even engage or interact with it. As such, the trauma of being left alone for literally decades or 15 or so years is almost so permanent you become asexual by trauma of never interacting with someone at all. It's something that a lot of people, and even some women even, actually experience in multiple different ways. I find it interesting that other ladies kind of don't really discuss this. I mean, sometimes they do, but, we'll get into that in other future videos as well. But when it comes to the issues that young men are facing, as the other half of the human species, I do think it is incumbent upon women who want to be in relationships with men should probably try to understand the experiences and thoughts and struggles that they have. In fact, it's actually kind of bizarre that as a woman, you wouldn't want to. It's actually peculiar and strange. You want to know why I got on Maggie the Fatty Bo-baddie so hard? It's not because she really did anything to me. And it's not even because I dislike her and I think she's ugly. I really don't. Again, I would date Maggie on aesthetics alone. The problem I have is Maggie's character and the person that Maggie is. This is how Maggie treats someone when they try to have a conversation with her and express the way they feel. He didn't curse at her. He didn't insult her. He wasn't mean to her. He just laid out how he felt. He didn't really go in the most robust details as one could. But it's not really like Maggie gave him the opportunity to either and didn't even ask him any questions. She played tit for tat with him. When Maggie had the chance to explain her position and give this man that she's talking to a different perspective that might even change his, look, let's grant that maybe it wouldn't. But she didn't even try. When she could be kind, when she could be nice, when she could open the doors and the avenues for someone else, Maggie chose not to. And for some odd reason, Maggie then finds herself upset because she got left alone because she's a fatty Bo-baddie. Maggie, the way you put it, you get too much sexual attention. You get treated like an object despite being a fatty Bo-baddie. So in being treated like an object, there's no way you're not also being treated like a normal human being too by men who do want to be with you. And yet still, you find yourself single. You want to know why you find yourself single? Because instead of actually trying to understand the opposite human beings on the planet Earth with you too, you decide that it makes more sense to be flippant, disregard their feelings, and block them because they said something you didn't like. And rather than taking any moment or any chance or any opportunity to come to a better understanding, you say, no, I'm not gonna have that conversation. You don't understand. You don't get it. Me. Well, you wanna know why he doesn't understand, Maggie? It's because a lot of ladies refuse to talk about it. You wanna complain about it, but you don't wanna talk about it. You wanna complain about being overweight, you don't wanna actually talk about it, and really come to terms with the fact that you, yes you, do the same thing to other people that happens to you. And the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of people in this stupid ass dating game we have that will do the same thing to other people and then cry and bitch and moan when it happens to them. You don't want to date people that are fat. You don't want to date people that are short. You don't want to date people that say an opinion you don't want to hear. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. You don't like this guy for that reason. You got the ick because he did this. However it goes, blah, 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 blah-bitty blah. But for some reason, if someone doesn't want to date you, who's a fatty Bo-baddie herself, then, it sucks. No, my friend, you are taking your licks. And I'm not talking about licks from the ice cream cone. I'm talking about you are taking your turn of someone treating you like an option and being flippant with you and not caring about how you feel. Even though ironically in both situations that occurred, these men were actually rather respectful of you. Now weren't they? How to flip does that work? Even when a dude is rejecting you, he's still being polite about it. And even when a dude is disagreeing with you, he's still being polite about it. Maggie, you had the option, or you were stuck between two men that actually aren't being jackasses to you. And this is how you treat the one of them that's willing to talk and engage. To me, this is a perfect encapsulation of the jackassery that occurs in the modern dating game. No one wants to take their licks, but everyone wants to be selfish and cry and complain and bitch and moan. And if you want me to be quite honest with you, I'm getting real fucking tired of it. Seriously, if you think that it's okay to be shallow and disregard the people you don't want to date, then it's only a matter of time before it's your turn to be disregarded for any shallow, frivolous, stupid, dumbass reason. And if you think I'm wrong, then maybe we're wrong. And perhaps together we need to figure out something the fuck else. So with that being said, I just hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, I don't know, man, go and click the like button. Shoot, go and click the subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.